Thanks, John. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 23rd River Falls City Council meeting. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Christie, can I have a roll call, please?
Bierstead.
Here.
Bjork.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Downing.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Miller.
I'm not sure. Alyssa, can you hear us?
She's on mute.
I don't know if she can hear us.
She's not actually hearing us, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think she can hear us.
Odine.
Hey.
Here. There she goes.
Alyssa, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Now we can.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Technology.
Yes.
Should I hold a big
Doesn't
sign
appear
up?
to say.
Can you hear us? Where's John? We can hear her, but she can't hear us. So that might be on her end. On her end? Wonder if she's got the right.
Looks like she's in front of a camper. Huh?
Should we go on? Should we wait?
Let's give her 5 minutes.
I think it's up to the chair, but I think we just recently talked about trying to give it about 5 or
Okay.
minutes or so to get it connected.
Okay.
Dan, I think this is when you can start your stand-up community.
Yep, that'd be a great shot at it.
Yeah, it's your opportunity.
Hey,
So a horse walks in a bar, bartender says, "Why the long face?"
What's that?
It's a classic. Can you hear us, Alyssa? Can you hear us? Okay.
Mayor, she's gonna sign out and sign back
Yep.
in here, and we'll see if we can.
She's not there.
She's not. There she is. Can you hear us, Alyssa?
back in yet if we
Yeah.
don't see.
Ask her if she knows what orange and looks like a parrot is.
Orange, it looks like a parrot.
A carrot?
Orange, it looks like a carrot.
Oh, orange looks like a carrot?
No, never mind.
Orange and looks like a parrot? Is
Well-
a carrot?
If you have to explain the joke,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, sorry.
This is something.
It was probably a great joke. It just went
Well,
right
it's a
over my
dad
head.
joke, you know,
Yeah.
part of being a dad.
Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe it's just
her microphone
orange
is
and
muted.
looks like, yeah, I don't know.
Alyssa, can you turn your microphone on and can you hear us?
It looks like her mic is off, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
It's muted.
And she can't hear us, tell her. Well, should we move on?
I think we need to move.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from the August 10th meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
First, second, any comments on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have approval of the bills with Mr. Carroll.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I move for approval of payment of bills, $931,740.72, subject to comptroller.
Second.
First and second on the bills, any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next move on to public comments. If there's anybody in the audience has anything they'd like to say? You can state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Dana Linscott. I live at W11395 West County Road M. I've become the inadvertent representative of the least fortunate, unsheltered people in River Falls. I've had discussions with Mayor Toland. I've had discussions with Mr. Simpson. They've not gone well. Mr. Simpson hung up on me rather than resolve our problems. So I'm here hoping to open a dialogue with any of you regarding this, the issue of those who are not served, are not adequately served by the resources that are currently available to house people during the dead of winter. Last winter, there were from half a dozen to a dozen individuals that were trying to survive the winter in their cars. These aren't cars where you can run the engines to stay warm safely. These are cars where you huddle in them with all your clothes on and with everything you can put around you to stay warm. This isn't right. I've talked to Mayor Toland, and he does not believe that this is a responsibility that the city should have to bear, and I agree. I have no choice. So I offered an alternative, which was to provide an unused resource for these unfortunate individuals so they could stay warm, have bathroom facilities, and possibly showers during the dead of winter. Neither Mr. Simpson nor Mr. Toland were open to the idea at all. It's Hoffman Park, and during its unused off-season time, it could be put to this use, and there are more than enough people in River Falls that are willing to foot the bill for it without the taxpayers having to pay 1 cent. I've never gotten, although I was strung along for a while, I've never gotten the idea that the city would be open to this at all. I don't know if any of you have heard of this idea up to this point, but I thought I'd give you the opportunity to hear it and possibly to talk about it. Certainly, please feel free to call me. As it is, I've been trying to find another place where these unfortunate individuals can stay warm over the winter, and it turns out there is an unowned piece of property northwest of the swinging bridge from which they cannot be trespassed. And that if nothing else is provided, is what they're stuck with for a place to stay warm over the winter. Anybody want to talk about it?
Nope, this isn't discussion, this is comment.
I understand
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. Please feel free to contact me.
Okay, anybody else in the audience has anything they want to talk about? Okay, we'll move on. Oops, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for listening to these public comments on behalf of the South Fork Advocacy Team. They are now an official committee under the Kinney Corridor Collaborative. The team would like me to share on their behalf that we really appreciate how the city has engaged over the last 30 days in the conversation about the proposed Autobahn racetrack development southeast of the city. It has been a challenging conversation for some of us, but we do appreciate the opportunity to just discuss our interest as a community. So thank you for that. Thank you for the Development Community Office for answering our questions, helping us understand the process. We do understand at this point that the developer has shared with Amy Peterson that at this point he is taking that project kind of off the table, which is thrilling for us within only 30 days. We understand he may in the future develop that as a housing development for our community, which we desperately need based on our housing study. We look forward to working with him and sharing ideas with him about how best to proceed in the interest of the community. Within the 30 days, we've managed to gather 1,140 people in our Facebook site and 750 local signatures under our zip code that are opposed to the idea of the Autobahn, but also interested in the future development of that area. Kinney Corridor Collaborative is committed to this advocacy team to work with them and help them approach the city respectfully to continue the dialogue. So we thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, now I'd like to move on and have our city administrator, Mr. Simpson. He's going to introduce us to our new fire chief, Stephen Cash.
You can remain seated, and that way I can too. Is that all right with you? Until the official swearing in ceremony.
Yeah.
Mayor and Council, it's my pleasure to introduce you and our community to our new fire chief, Stephen Cash. Stephen comes to us after a nationwide recruitment. He has 22 years of experience in the fire service, most recently serving as an assistant chief with the La Crosse Fire Department. He oversaw the Division of Community Risk Management. The Police and Fire Commission approved Stephen's appointment on June 27th. Many of you are familiar with the Police and Fire Commission statutes in Wisconsin, but as you know, their recommendation is an important part of this process, and we're happy to receive it. Stephen's career in the fire service began in 2000 as a volunteer with the Village of Howard in Wisconsin, so we know he's a Packer fan, right? In 2004, he began his fire service career with the city of La Crosse, and he's worked in various different roles and ranks, gained a number of specialized training and experiences that we think will be a benefit to our department. He has an associate's degree in firefighting and a bachelor's degree in fire administration. He's been an advocate in his career and life for those on the autism spectrum and has spent many years working at the local, state, and national levels advocating for positive changes and accommodations. In addition, Stephen's been involved with volunteer groups such as Sleep in Heavenly Peace and Children's Miracle Network. Stephen is joined tonight by his wife and children, who I just informed are also being hired, so I don't think they knew that, but they'll have to take that up with Dad later tonight. Stephen's wife, Rena, they've relocated to River Falls already with the 4 children getting ready for school here. Marcos, Kira, CJ, and Ari are joining us here. So we welcome you all to the community, and I have no doubt that the community will also show you their welcome, and we're just as happy, and it's just as important for us to welcome the family as it is the chief. He's got plenty of help getting ready for what lies in front of him, so we all want to offer our help to you also coming into the community. So at this time, I'd like Deputy Clerk McCann to come forward and administer the official oath of office.
raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Stephen Cash,
I, Stephen Cash,
have been appointed to the position of Fire Chief,
have been appointed to the position of Fire Chief,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear to support the Constitution of the United
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge
will faithfully and partially discharge
the duties of the said office to the best of my ability.
the duties of the said office to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Welcome to the city of River Falls.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. I gotta say, I'm humbled and honored to be serving as your fire chief. Since my wife and I and the rest of my family have been to the community, we've been overjoyed and loved everything we've done, people we've met. It seems like such a family-based kind of community. It's very friendly. It's not, I haven't encountered any people that were standoffish. It just, everybody's been open, warm, and welcome. And I just constantly find check boxes that, yep, this is why this is a perfect fit. So I want to thank everybody for inviting me in, and I look forward to serving the community and, making River Falls even greater place. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Okay, now we're gonna move on. We got a presentation. Is Sean here? Heather? There he is. So Sean Sean Lentz from Ellers is gonna give us a presentation on financing coming up later on in the agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you. It's a lot of people leaving when I get up, though. That's hopefully I won't mess this up, but I think if I go... All right. Hi, Sean. How are you? Very good.
All right, did you want this over here to be able to?
Yeah, just so... Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and then,
Just do it right.
yeah, just wander through.
Perfect.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can use that or the space bar if you want a space bar through.
Okay. Yeah, the mouse should be fine.
Whatever way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I guess I did need a little help. No, thank you. What we're going to go over tonight with the council is an executive summary of the financing for various projects that were a part of the city's plan for 2022. As we go through the material, we've been working on this with Josh, my coworker Josh Lowe, and I have been working with Josh, your finance director, in putting this together for your review. Please feel free to interrupt with any questions as we move through the material. So just to remind the council what projects we're discussing today, on the screen you'll see the word north multiple times. As I'm sure you're aware, you've got the North Sewer Interceptor, Water Tower, and looping projects going on in the city. And correspondingly, you'll see the budgets and the different sewer portion, water portion, and a little bit of the looping, the sewer looping, is also the responsibility of Tax Increment District Number 13. So that's out in the Whitetail area as well. And then in addition to those list of construction or infrastructure projects, you have two financings related to economic development related initiatives that the city has going on. One in Tax Increment District Number 17 related to the Tattersall incentive, part of that project plan, that redevelopment. And then secondly is some acquisition of property in Man Valley, where I know the city has lots of activity going on out there. That total is approximately 11.7 million in costs. And then as we looked at the existing debt of the city, one particular issue jumped out as making sense to look at as a refinancing candidate, and that is the 2011A water revenue bonds, which can be refinanced as of, I think it's November 1st of this year. Okay. So as we looked at that list of projects and worked with the finance staff, primarily Josh, a couple things that we had to deal with in putting the finance plan together is typically most projects that the city does can be financed with tax-exempt debt because they're government purpose projects. A couple of the projects this year, though, fit more into what the IRS calls private business purpose types projects, and those are really those economic development projects that you have. And what gets involved in there is you very astutely put together, as an example with the Tattersall agreement, you're willing to do an incentive, but on the other side, you require certain minimum pay provisions of the other side of the party. And that kicks us into a little bit different of a tax bracket or tax purpose for those types of projects. And then secondarily, some of the debt that we're looking at this year is general obligation debt, and some will be revenue debt. So those were the things that we were looking at. And as we put that together, the preliminary finance plan for the council's review this evening involves 4 issues: a roughly $5.2 million general obligation for the sewer portion of the North Looping and North Interceptor projects, a 5.9, just under $6 million issue, which is for the water portion of the North Interceptor Looping, those projects, as well as refinancing that issue that I talked about earlier from 2011, that is an existing water revenue bond. And then the 2 smaller issues are related to the TID 17 Tattersall incentive and the Man Valley project, and both of those are land acquisition project, approximately $750,000 in amount. Now, 3 of the 4 issues are looking at using general obligation debt of the city. That's the strongest pledge you as a city have, the strongest pledge and the lowest interest rates you can get when you issue debt. So of course the state limits that as to how much you can do. It's 5% of the equalized value of River Falls, which as you can see is somewhere around $75 million with the recent growth in valuation in the city. The blue bars at the bottom are representative of existing debt that the city's issued in past years, plus the 3 general obligation issues from this year. And as you can see, the city has used this tool for a number of projects over the years. This building is an example of one of them. But you've also used it relatively conservatively because you're well below that borrowing capacity limit that the state puts on you. Okay? So no major concerns in this area. Now, the other thing we wanted to review with the council tonight is what are the funding sources that will be used in future years to repay the debt that we're talking about this evening. The first issue, the general obligation sewerage bonds, are for sewer utility projects, and the vast majority of that debt will be paid back with rates and charges of the sewer utility and be paid back over the next 20 years. The first 8 years, the city would not have the option of prepaying, but the last 12, at any point. If you had built up fund balance in the sewer, you could make that decision should you choose. For planning purposes, we've used interest rates that are about 50 basis points above the current market. So that's that projected rate for planning purposes of about 4.14%. The other funding source for this issue is tax increment district number 13, which is going to be responsible for a portion of this. And in looking at both the sewer utility and looking at tax increment district number 13 with city staff, both seem positioned to handle this issue fine And so that will eliminate the need for the city to have to levy for it, because you'll be using those sewer revenues and revenues from tax increment district number 13. Secondly, the water issue will also be paid back over the next 20 years. And remember, it's financing those infrastructure projects as well as refinancing the water debt from 2011. Projected interest rate on that as a revenue bond, it's going to be a little bit higher than the GO, because it doesn't quite have that credit strength, because it's not the full faith and credit of the city you pledge, but the rates and charges of the water utility. So it's a very strong credit, but just not quite as strong. The water utility also, expectation with the current status, looking at your recent audit, strong and can manage this additional debt being paid back over the next 20 years.
John, sorry for interrupting. What's the current rate on the refinance, on the piece that you're proposing we refinance?
Let me take a quick look. I've got that here. As a reference for the council, it is in the pre-sale reports that had a lot more material in there, but just give me 1 second. I'll go get that.
Sorry, I must have missed it, all my reading.
No, we kind of hit it here at the last page. So the outstanding rates, and there's only 10 years left on this issue, so we're going to pay it back over the same term as the existing issue is. We're not extending it. There's 10 years left, and the rates range from 3.4% up to 4.4%. The 4.3 you see on the screen, that's for the whole 20 years. But because we can get those rates, we're projecting 340 to 440, what they're right now, 255 to 370 is the, and that's about 50 basis points above the market. By getting those lower rates for the next 10 years, that's where the savings comes in.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Any other questions on that? Okay. Finally, then, on the last two issues, the Tattersall Development Agreement incentive, tax increment district number 17, so the new redevelopment, the Tattersall operation out there has created new revenue in tax increment district number 17, and that will pay the annual debt on this payment each year over the next 10 years. And finally, the Man Valley, this is one that's a little more fluid in terms of what will ultimately happen with it. It's a balloon payment due 5 years from now for the $750,000 approximately. There's a couple different options. One is there's some right-of-way needs that the utilities are getting for that land, so you may have a portion of the debt paid from utility revenues. There's also the very real possibility that the city may sell that property for development purposes, and then that's also a potential revenue source that could pay this back. The concept in talking with city staff about it is there's a lot of unknowns exactly what will proceed and the overall development of Man Valley. So we provide ourselves 5 years to kind of figure out what's going on, and hopefully within that 5 years, we'll have a firm plan to pay that $750,000 off in full. Okay. Now finally, finish up before there's any questions. Tonight, what's asked of the council is your bond council put together a number of resolutions related to the general obligation issue, the bond issue, and the water bond issue. Those are required to start the process approval of the council this evening. And then secondly, the two smaller notes, the $750,000 Tattersall and Man Valley, the city, in many cases, has looked to local institutions to finance those smaller notes, and that is the approach this year. So a resolution just authorizing soliciting proposals to bring back for your review would also be approved this evening to get that process going. The other thing I wanted to mention, a couple of things that we'll be doing just to finish up. We'll be preparing the official statements, which is the prospectus for the debt, a lot of information about the city, about these issues specifically. And we'll also be renewing the city's bond rating for your general obligation debt, as well as for the water debt, the water revenue bonds. Josh and Scott will be a big part of that. Your development staff, we'll have a discussion with Moody's Investor Service. Your rating is on both the geo debt and the water debt is currently excellent, and I expect that it will continue to be going through that process with Moody's. The 27th, we'd bring back competitive proposals for the council's review, and at that point, you'd make a decision to accept the best bid before you. A couple weeks after that would be the closing of the issue, and as I'd mentioned, the refunding will pay that off in and around November 1st. That issue will go away. And finally, thanks again for your patience. We did want to give you a look at the interest rate market. This particular chart looks at interest rates over the last 30 years, so it's a very long-term view. And there's just really two things that jump out at me in looking at this. One is we've had a general downward trend over that 30-year time period with a couple definitely blips upward. But there's been a general downward trend. You can see on the far right side of the page, and I know this is no surprise to any of you, is on and around March of this year, we saw a significant uptick from record low interest rate levels. And while we are certainly up from those record low levels, historically speaking, we're in a pretty low interest rate environment overall for the city to be issuing long-term debt. So with that, covered a number of different areas, and again, appreciate your patience in going through all that, but if there's any questions that you might have, I'd be happy to answer those. And again, later on your agenda, I think, is the resolutions for action of the council this evening.
Anybody have anything for Sean? And you're gonna be around, right?
I certainly can be, yep.
Just in case
Sure.
somebody comes up with something?
You bet, Mayor. Yep,
Thanks, Sean.
you bet.
Okay, so now we're gonna close the council hearing and open up a public hearing. Actually, the first thing we'll do is have Emily's gonna give us where is that? There you are. She's gonna give us a little presentation on all the different ordinance changes we're looking at.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Emily Shively, River Falls City Planner. And, oh, that did not work. There we go. We'll use the mouse. All right. At the council meeting on August 10th, I provided an overview of the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and city code related to parking, nuisances, rental uses, signage, and code enforcement. So tonight, I'll just give a brief recap of what the amendments are intended to do. So the amendments address the 5 primary areas identified here. The intent of the modifications is to provide clearer standards in these areas so that it's easier for everyone to understand the expectations and requirements to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The parking provisions establish performance standards for residential parking to address common parking-related nuisance issues, such as parking locations and surfacing. They consolidate parking provisions into one section of the code instead of occurring in multiple areas. And then they address parking and storage of RVs, boats, and equipment with modifications that were recommended by the Plan Commission that we discussed more in depth at the last meeting. And I also just wanted to bring up an issue that was raised at the public hearing on August 10th regarding driveways that are currently closer to the property line than the ordinance would allow. And as a reminder, those would be considered legally non-conforming by the existing code and allowed to remain and be repaired or replaced in their current condition. The nuisance code provisions define public nuisances, including debris and abandoned and inoperable vehicles, to provide more clarity to property owners and staff. The amendments prohibit exterior storage of debris and inoperable vehicles on public or private property. And the amendments also establish standards for the storage of goods and vehicles on private property. The provisions related to residential rental uses amend the housing code to address habitability violations per state statute, clarify residential rental registration and complaint and enforcement procedures to ensure health and safety of residential housing in a manner consistent with state statutes. We adopt state codes and statutes by reference for contractor licensure requirements and require licensure of plumbers and electricians who work in the city, which is consistent with state law. So a lot of conformance with state statute in that section. The amendments also define rental income and residential rental uses, classify residential rental uses as a permitted use in all zoning districts that allow residential uses, and establish minimum space and occupancy standards for rental uses to be consistent with the building code and subject to the requirements of the housing code. For signage, the amendments clarify that a property owner may place a sign between the curb and the property line in the downtown overlay district. That's the sandwich boards that are put out usually during the day. And it requires all other signs to be located on private property, set back at least 15 feet from the curb. The amendment also clarifies language related to flashing and moving signs, which are prohibited in some locations, and then duration regulations for political signs have been removed to comply with state law. Lastly, the amendments articulate the code enforcement and abatement process for public nuisances and establish processes and procedures for enforcement in the zoning ordinance to be consistent with enforcement of other code violations. Then, in summary, the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments and the city code amendments respond to issues identified by staff and the community and prioritized by the city council related to vehicle parking and storage on residential properties, maintaining safe and healthy residential rental properties, ensuring appropriate placement and regulations of temporary signs, and outlining clear standards for addressing code violations to protect health and safety. As I noted earlier, the Plan Commission reviewed the ordinances at their meeting on July 5th and forwarded them with a favorable recommendation with the modifications that I talked about with the RV parking, that sort of thing. And then these ordinances have also been reviewed by the city attorney, and I will now turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
So what we'll do is we'll close the council hearing and open up the public hearing. This will be on ordinance 2022-05. This is an ordinance amending Title 17 for zoning, Chapter 17.08, Section 17.08.030, and 17.08.040, and Chapter 17.8, Section 17.8 Section 17.80.020, which is parking standards. And this is the second reading, and I will take a motion, or I'm sorry, is there anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to say about this?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Chris Gagne, 430 Kennedy Street. I'll sign in when I'm done there to make best use of time. I spoke before you 2 weeks ago at the other the first reading. I appreciate Ms. Shively's bringing up that 5-foot setback change. I have no problem with the 5-foot setback. The only concern I had, like I mentioned, was the couple different properties, sides of my property that I show in the picture here, on each side. And I think there's quite a few other properties in the city of River Falls. I just love for you to acknowledge that as well, being the lawmakers in the city of River Falls. Your approval of that obviously would dictate that as well. So I appreciate the time and the efforts by city to clear up any misconceptions that there would be out there for that parking.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything on this? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and open up the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on this first.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2022-05, and I'm not reading all those
Yeah.
numbers, so that's all you get.
Second.
Yep.
Second.
Okay, first and second, questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So I like a lot of these codes, but this one I take particular issue with. So I want to begin by addressing the elephant in the room, which is public safety. And the unintended consequences of this particular code would create more plus-size vehicles and RVs in particular parking on our city streets, which is a bigger hazard for public health and safety. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but there's more to be considered. I don't think this ordinance is ready for River Falls consumption just yet. That is because our city does not have a formal and easy process for people to remember that is crystal clear. An easy and formal way of doing this would simply be you can park plus-size vehicles in your driveway, behind your house, or on the side, or on an appropriate surface on cinder blocks, but not on our city streets. This code I'll be voting against. It attempts to limit people parking RVs in their driveway. So after parking their RV for 29 days, they can come back and park there again. So why not just allow plus-size vehicles in people's driveways and get them off the city streets altogether? If we do this the correct way, which removes all plus-size vehicles off city streets, we fix all the safety risks and problems that plus-size vehicles create for our community. Removing the safety hazards would be a big benefit to our community. The reality is, it's better for everyone who owns a plus-size vehicle to park a plus-size vehicle on their property and not on our streets. We should also be concerned about safety, more concerned about safety than what we are about the appearance of a plus-size vehicle looks in a driveway. This is what I'm asking you to value. Let plus-size vehicles park in their driveway. They paid for it. It'll save on the wear and tear on the streets, reduce risks, and most importantly, make the streets safer for all children and all drivers by keeping plus-size vehicles off of it. What are plus-size vehicles? RVs, semis, buses, bigger boats, long cattle trucks are all plus-size vehicles. We need to allow them to park in their driveways and get them off our city streets for the safety of our community. And if they can't fit in the driveway, then they can park in the industrial park like the respectful semi-drivers do. This particular code does not address plus-size vehicles properly and misses on winter parking with the odd and even parking about how the city would specifically approach one-way streets such as North Pearl and North Dallas, who may have no other locations to park. The street is already too narrow there, and then in some cases, they have no way of accessing other locations because they are smaller property. This code lacks direction for those unique problems these narrow one-way streets have with overcrowding on those particular streets. And it doesn't go into what exceptions or a list that it could follow to determine a better location. If we pass this, we would see more problems later on because one-way streets are small and don't necessarily have enough room to accommodate all families that live on those one-way streets already. That is why some people park on their lawns. Because of that, I am less concerned about people parking on their lawns on the one-way streets because they are too small to support everyone parking adequately in the winter. I am more concerned about the risk and problems having plus-size vehicles on the streets this code incentivizes. This is a problem with when drivers come around corners too fast for children and when people can't see around these plus-size vehicles. I'll be voting against this particular one. I hope other council members would vote against this too, because safety is more important than just appearances. Certainly, we can do better.
Mr. Downing, can I just ask you a quick clarifying question? So you don't want to have any plus-size parking at all in the city? None at all?
Not on city streets. This incentivizes the RVs to park there and then just move when a certain time limit's up, come back and park again, which is going to create hazards.
I don't know that that's practical. From my point of view, I don't know that I can find that practical. I mean, if you have somebody that shows up that's visiting somebody and has a plus-size an RV, for instance, and they're just coming for the day, you're not going to be allowed to park on the street in front of that house for just that day?
They could park in a driveway.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything on this? Okay, we got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, next move on. Next, we'll close the council hearing and open up the public hearing on ordinance 2022-06. This is an ordinance amending Title 8 Health and Safety, Chapter 8.32, nuisance generally. This is a second reading and disposition. And is there anybody in the audience has anything to say about this? Okay, we will close the public hearing and open up the council hearing, and I will take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 2022-06.
Second.
Okay, first and second, questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, before you call the vote, I'm just checking with Councilmember Miller to see.
Oh,
It'd be up to the chair how you want to recognize, but I'm just going to see
Yeah.
if she's,
can
she said she's been on for a while and has heard the meeting, so
Okay.
I'm just testing to see if we can hear her for a vote.
Her microphone appears to be off still.
Even a hand up or down?
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah?
No,
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Ooh, yeah. Can you hear us?
Oh.
She can hear us? She can hear us,
She indicated that she could hear us,
okay?
but I think there may be quite a delay, it looks like to me. She did not vote on the previous vote. I think John is still working on getting a phone audio connection.
So should we wait again?
That would be at the discretion of the chair.
It's up to you guys. You guys want to wait again?
Yeah,
Are we okay moving forward?
I'm okay with waiting for a little bit. I would hope.
I think we can move, we got 6 people to.
Yeah, I'm not. Great, great. And John's still working on this? Okay, well, we'll move forward.
You do the,
Here, John,
Hang it, we can get it to you. Or. I don't,
So it's fine if the chair wants to go forward with the meeting, and we can still work on the technical side
yeah,
if you
yeah,
want to
is
do
that
that.
okay? Okay. So first and second on ordinance, there was no questions or comments, so all in favor of ordinance 2022-06, amending Title 8 Health and Safety? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we'll close the council hearing and open up the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-07. This is an ordinance amending Title 15, Buildings and Construction. Is there anybody in the audience have anything like to say about this? Okay, we will close the public hearing and open up the council hearing, and I will take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion, we approve ordinance 2022-07.
Second.
Okay, first and second, questions, comments? Okay, no questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next I'll close the council hearing again and open up a public hearing on ordinance 2022-08. This is an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, chapters 17.04, 17.08, 17.16, 17.20, 17.24, 17.28, 17.32, 17.36, 17.40, 17.64, and 17.112 residential rental uses. Is there anybody in the audience that has anything like to say about this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we'll reopen the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on this.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, first and a second, questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next move on to, we'll close the council hearing and open up another public hearing on ordinance 2022-09. This is an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.68, Section 17.68.100, .c.19.b, and Chapter 17.84, Section 17.84.010, 17.84.020, 17.84.030, B.3, 17.84.030, .f.2.6, and 17.84.030.g.5, 17.84.030.h.2, 4, and 5. Oh, there's more. 17.84.040, D6, F, and F6, 17.84.050 on signs. Is there anybody honest has anything to say about this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open up the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on that.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and a second. Questions or comments?
I have a quick question. On the political signs, there was a statement in there before that was taken out, was something about signs to be removed within 72 hours after the election, and that was struck out. I'm just wondering why that was struck out and why we didn't consider that anymore.
I think it's
Yeah,
a state
that's a
thing, right?
content
Yeah.
regulation that's not allowed under the United States Constitution based on the Reed decision.
Really, so it could stay there forever.
Yes.
Ouch.
Anybody have anything else on this? Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, these are just first readings. I don't, oh, no, wait, we got one more. Sorry. So I'll close the council hearing and open up the public hearing again on ordinance 2022-10. This is an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.104, Section 17.104.060. This is violations, penalties, and enforcements. Is there anybody in the audience has anything to say about this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open up the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on this one.
I move to
Second.
accept.
Okay, first and second, questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, for the first readings, we don't have to do a public hearing on those, do we?
Yes.
Yes,
We do? Okay. So we'll close the public hearing and we'll close the council hearing and open up a public hearing on ordinance 2022.11. This is an ordinance annexing certain territory of the town of River Falls to the city of River Falls, N8817, 1010th Street, and N8753, 1010th Street, and applying a zoning classification of B2 multiple family.
R2.
Oh, I'm sorry, R2, a lot of letters. Multiple family, medium density. Is there anybody in the audience has anything like to say about this? Yep, come on up.
I'm Robert Smith. I'm not actually sure the numbers match what's in my head. Is this the property that's across from South Apollo Road?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, one comment first about the numbers. The Persian poet Hafiz said, 0 is where the real fun starts. You're doing great, Mr. Toland, for all the numbers you're reading off. But in any case, I'm wondering about the River Falls water table. You know, there's a lot of development occurring, which is a positive thing. But I remember one of my last walks across the swinging bridge, there's a sign about the water flow of the South Fork of the Kinney and how it used to supply the force for a number of mills. And that particular branch of the Kinney is getting close to non-existent much of the year. So anyway, I'm curious about continued development with significant lawns that require a lot of water. 20 years down the road with a mega drought or something, what impact is planned for by the city council taking a long-term view of a lot of development? I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just am concerned about water. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, thanks. Is there anybody else has anything like to say? Okay, I will close the public hearing and open up the council hearing. Does council have any questions on this?
Just want to appreciate his comment about how important protecting our water is and our resources. Thank you.
Okay, we will close the council hearing and open up a public hearing on ordinance 2022-12. This is an ordinance approving amendment to the official zoning map and future land use map with a comprehensive plan of the city of River Falls to rezone the parcel of the southwest corner of South Wasan Lane and Cemetery Road PID number 27601.3020401 from R3 Multiple Family High Density Residential to SZ School Zone, and change the future land use classification from High Density Residential to Public Institutional. Is there anybody in the audience has anything like to say about this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open up the council hearing for questions. Any questions? Nope. Okay, let's see, where are we here? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. First, we'll start with the acknowledgement of the following minutes. This would be River Falls Housing Authority from 6/8, Utility Advisory Board from 7/18, the West Central Wisconsin Biosolids Facility from 7/21, the Bid Board from 7/12, the Park and Recreation Advisory Board from 7/20, the Plan Commission from 7/5, the Plan Commission Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee Workshop from 6/7, and the Historic Preservation Commission from 7/13. Next one is a resolution requesting application for exemption from county library tax. This resolution would authorize applying for exemption from the county library tax for properties in the city of River Falls. Next one is a resolution authorizing a core fee reimbursement and an option for River Falls non-resident utility customers. This next one is a resolution approving the contract with Strand Associates Incorporated for wastewater treatment facility biosolids dewatering and drying design services. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull number 15.
15? Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of consent agenda items 12A through H and 13 and 14.
Second.
Questions or comments on anything? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next move on to number 15 with Mr. Downing pulled.
Resolution approving the contract with Strand Associates Incorporated for wastewater treatment facility biosolids dewatering and drying design services. My question is for Mr. Simpson. Do we have a timeline for this? And also, because of this unique timeline, there was money that was awarded that is going to go to the Ellsworth, which we used to be part of, we're moving out of. Will we still be able to qualify to win that money again, or is that something where we guaranteed to get it or not?
Okay, I think I heard two questions, one related to the biosolids facility, and that was actually an award from the federal government through, we applied as a conduit recipient on behalf of ourselves and the other members of the Joint Action Group, which owns the biosolids facility in Ellsworth, which currently processes the biosolids. That we're still eligible for. That project is moving forward. We still have some responsibility as one of the owners we're still ending our contract, so we still have some years left there to do. I think we talked to the council calling it like phase 0.5, so it wasn't their full phase 1 expansion, but it was some improvements to scales and buildings there for the facility. So that's proceeding. The $1.6 million federal award is still proceeding, and we still have responsibility as an owner of that facility. Then we're working now to plan our own facility, and the timeline is to have that online by essentially January 1st of 2026. So we've tried to stay quite a bit ahead of the process. This would be a very significant commitment, I would say, to going forward with our own facility, because considerable amount of money on design services that wouldn't otherwise be necessary if we weren't doing our own facility. In other words, there's not really much to take from these plans and use for something else. It would be specific to this project. So we would be expecting that the council, as they've indicated before, is committed to the project, but certainly at this point, this would be another point. If you weren't committed to the project, we'd like to hear that before we go forward with the contract. So does that answer your questions?
So I went and toured over and at the nearest facility, and I know you were there too, and it was over at Wisconsin Dells. And I just wanted to make sure, the reason I'm asking this is that we can, in a timely way, still secure those federal monies that would come with it. Because I know we have 3 million, most likely we're going to save, but we should be able to save more if we can secure that again, right?
I want to clarify that the monies that we secured are not going to be for our facility, they're for the Ellsworth facility. Now, that'll have an impact on the rates that we pay as an owner of the Ellsworth facility for a short period of time while we're still under contract with them.
Right, but I'm talking about, we would qualify for them again for what we're building, correct?
If the federal government offered a similar program, we would, but that money was essentially part of well, they don't call it earmarks anymore. I can't recall the name that they're now using for earmarks, but essentially we would have to get back in line. And to answer your question, I would say we would be eligible if the same process is identified by the congressional delegation. So in this case, they put out a request for all of the cities, villages, et cetera, to give them requests, and then they identified about 10 projects per congressional district.
So when would we be applying for that?
So the next federal fiscal, and I don't know that off the top of my head, I think it would be October 1 of, let's see, is it October or September? It's October 1 of 20, we're on 2 now, so October 1 of 23 would be the next federal fiscal. And there may be, Congress can decide they want to do appropriations bills every year, so they could decide that they want to do this again next year, but I think it's unlikely that we would see this again until then. There is still money from ARPA that's available to us, and we haven't really been able to digest the new act that was passed, the American Inflation Act. It's likely that there'll be some infrastructure money. In particular, there's been a lot of money in water and wastewater infrastructure, so it's possible that there'd be money there too, which would be a different source.
Well, I'm all in favor of this project, and it looks like we'll be able to secure that money again if it's available.
That we're hopeful that that's a possibility, but council should understand we're prepared to go forward with ratepayer monies to produce this project because we feel cost benefit is still in line with the values. It's still more cost effective and a long-term stability for the ratepayers, even if they had to pay 100% of the project.
I would agree. Mr. Mayor, move approval of number 15.
Hang on, I got a comment, Sean, if I could.
Oh, sure, go for it.
I want to just recognize the UAB's efforts and attention to detail in taking a look at the contracts that were laid in front of them and making the recommendation to the council that we negotiate that price that Strand provided to a number of $550 instead of the $640 that was submitted. So I appreciate the efforts of the UAB doing that. I think it's good to recognize them and their efforts. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of number 15.
Second.
Okay, first, second, any other questions on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next, ordinances and resolutions. Let's see, the initial resolution authorizing $5,155,000 general obligation bonds for sewage projects. I'll take a motion on this.
I move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify, much to our, unfortunately, even with our best efforts, we're unable to establish consistent audio connection with Councilmember Miller.
Okay.
She is able to view the meeting and she's participating by watching, but she won't be participating in the votes. And she
Okay.
understood that, so I just wanted to let you know that she's still,
Okay.
despite my best efforts to tell her to go have her vacation, she's watching the
Yeah.
video and participating in that way. She's been able to listen to the presentations, but just for a status update.
Okay. Question or comments on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, I need to
Oh, we
get
need a
roll call,
You're correct.
please.
Christie, can we have a roll call on this, please?
Bjork,
Yes.
Odine,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Bierstead.
Yes.
Okay, next one is a resolution directing publication of notice to electors referring to a bond issue.
I move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments on this? Christie, roll call?
Odine,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Bjork.
Yes.
Okay, next one is a resolution providing for the sale of not to exceed $5,155,000 general obligation sewage bonds.
I move approval of the resolution providing for the sale not to exceed $5,155,000 general obligation sewer bonds.
Second.
Questions or comments? Christie?
Morset,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Bjork,
Yes.
Odine,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Downing.
Yes.
Okay, next one is a resolution providing for the sale of approximately $5,995,000 water system revenue bonds.
I move approval of the resolution providing for the sale of water bonds.
Second.
First and second, questions? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Christie, go ahead.
Carroll,
Yes.
Bjork,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Odine.
Yes.
Okay, next one is a resolution authorizing local bank solicitation to finance Tattersall Development Incentive.
I move to approve.
Second.
First and second. Questions or comments? Mr. Morissette, you are city
Yeah,
liaison?
I will abstain from this one and the next one.
Okay.
Christie, if you want to just mark me right away, that'd be fine.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need a roll call on this?
No.
We don't?
No.
Okay.
Okay, next one is a resolution authorizing local bank solicitation to finance Man Valley land acquisition.
I move to approve this as well.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is it's a report, but it's really not a report, it's a strategic plan, the biannual update, and this was in our packet. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Not a question, just a comment. So I read through it. It's very good. One thing that's just I noticed was the engagement with Facebook is positive and up, and I think there's some reasons for it, but I'm very happy to see that.
Okay. Next, move on to comptroller's report.
The comptroller's report for July 2022. General fund revenues through the end of July were $5,619,922, or 48% of total budgeted revenues for the year. Revenues in July included $18,323 in building permit fees, $8,744 for parks, camping, and shelter fees, and $5,562 in court penalties and forfeitures. Year-to-date expenditures through the end of July were $6,636,100, or 60% of total budget expenditures for the year. As of July 31st, 2022, net expenditures over revenues were $1,016,178.
Thank you, Diane. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody that the next cookout conversations with us, with the council and me, is this Thursday night over at Glen Park. And then the next thing, I want to recognize staff last week and thank all the citizens that came to the Customer Appreciation Utility Cookout. It was a great success. Staff did a great job doing everything. It was great to see all the citizens and all different things. Do we have any idea how many we served? Any guess?
We have an amazingly accurate count for.
Well, it's perfect.
We'll say between 900 and 1,000.
Well, good.
And we got them all through the line, except for 5 before the rain came, so.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And then we just enjoyed the meal with those 5 under the tent while it rained,
Yeah.
so.
That was good to see a lot of people out again for that. That was all I had.
Mayor, before we go, I'd like to, and I don't know if Tyler's still out there, but he has a big test for us tomorrow for getting his license on the drone, so. So good luck to Tyler.
Step down.
He's studying.
He's studying.
Well, good, we need him to.
Yeah. Move to adjourn.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.